I grew up in a dichotomous environment. I'm South African. My parents are South African. So I grew up during apartheid. So it was, that whole life experience. And at the same time, my dad was a professional cricket player. And he was recruited to the UK because at the time, international sport was banned in South Africa. It meant that we spent 6 months of the year in South Africa, and the other 6 months we were in the UK. And it created an environment where in the UK, we didn't experience blatant racism. And then the 6 months that we were back in South Africa, there were all these restrictions. Because of the color of your skin, you couldn't go to certain malls, you couldn't go to certain beaches, you couldn't go to certain schools. You had to live in certain neighborhoods. So all the Black people in the country, Black Africans, would live in one community. All the colored people, which is what I am classified as, mixed race, would live in one community, and the white Caucasian population would live in another. And so it was a very weird childhood coming to terms with that, when 6 months of the year, you're free to do whatever you want. And then you come back home. And I remember going to the supermarket, this mall with my mum, and not understanding why we had to go there and not why we couldn't just go anywhere else. Because that was the mall that colored people could go to. So it was, but having those experiences also changed the way both my sister and I viewed the world, because we'd expanded our experiences beyond South Africa, right? Beyond.
Yeah, from a young age, you got that exposure, right?
And so with that came judgment as well, because when we returned to South Africa and spending 6 months of the year abroad in the UK, when I was born in Scotland, we had an accent. I'm still told that I have an accent. So
It's a great accent.
So when we returned, we were called all these names. Why do you speak like that? Are you trying to be white? We were called coconuts.
Is that derogatory?
And yeah, it was derogatory at the time, for sure. It meant that you were brown on the outside, but you wanted to be white because you acted a certain way, you spoke like the white, community or people. And it was mind-blowing to us because it wasn't really something that we were deliberately doing.
It was just your life.
Correct.
Yeah.
And, the people in our community where we lived didn't necessarily understand it because they didn't have the same experiences that we had. And because of that, we also had conversations and questions around, but why? How can this be? After experiencing the UK and then coming back to this. So yeah, I'm grateful for it. It was certainly not easy. But yeah, our parents, we've always had very open relationships with both my mom and my dad. And so these would be dinner time conversations, right? My dad had experienced that in his career as well. So it was very much a living experience for the entire family. So yeah, and then from there, from a young age, I always knew that I wanted to be a doctor. There wasn't anything else. I had this interest in medicine and in law and business as well. And I remember just having this inner calling, this is what I wanted to do.
Was it about helping people?
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely about wanting to help people in a way that could make their lives better. And so, I went through primary school, through high school, and played sport, was very involved, but I wasn't a full straight A student. And so I knew that, and I knew that going through high school, well, there was a couple of challenges, right? One, I was colored, and that also meant that the percentage of colored students who got entry into universities at the time was far lower than the white Caucasian population.
It was restricted?
Not necessarily restricted, but because when you're coming from a so-called, or I don't call it so-called because it is what it is, right? Disadvantaged community, you don't have access to the same resources. You don't have access to necessarily the same education that the other generations have had. So there's a inequality, right, that exists. So I kind of knew that, that was one hurdle that I needed to overcome. The other was that, med schools anywhere in the world, you're kind of, they're looking for the cream of the crop, right? They want the top achievers, well-rounded individuals, etc., ideally. And back then, I would say historically, the focus was really more on academics.
Academics, yeah.
As I would say, universities kind of moved with the times, it became more about trying to find a more holistic approach, like a well-rounded individual, right? But your academics plays a huge part in your application. And, I wasn't a full straight A student because I had other shit going on.
Boys.
And no, I went to an all-girls school, so there were no boys. I can't even blame it on that. But I also knew that I needed to do something different to be able to set myself apart when that time came for application processes. So at the age of 18, my mum worked at one of the banks at the time, and one of her clients worked at the local police department where they would do, in the forensics department where they would do post-mortems. And she told him that I want to study medicine. And he said, well, he can suggest, he'll speak to the professor that does it, and maybe I can come and they can teach me and I can learn about the human body in this forensic pathology environment.
With the police?
Correct. So at the age...
At 18?
16.
At 16?
At 16.
This is crazy.
Yeah. So my mum set that up for me. And
so what did you have
so
to do?
I would miss school on, I think it was a Tuesday or Wednesday morning. And I would go down to the police station and I would meet this inspector, Anne Bradar, and the professor who did the postmortems. He's actually, I forget his, I think it's Schwartz, if I'm not mistaken. But that was my first encounter. And it was a pretty morbid encounter for the first time.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense first time.
Oh, 100%. I mean, at that point, I don't even think I had actually ever touched, a dead body or come that close to it. And now we're in a scenario where these are postmortems that you're doing for unnatural deaths, right? So, but I loved the learning of it. It was fascinating for me. And so that carried on. Fast forward a couple of years, I had to apply to med school. My mum was working at the university at the time. I applied to, I think, 3 different universities, got rejected. And I was like, fuck this. I'm not gonna take it lying down. This is what I want to do, so I'm gonna fight for it. So I appealed, and my appeal was accepted in the sense that I was given the opportunity to stand in front of a panel and state my case. Why me? What do I have that's different to all the other cream of the crop students, and why should they sort of take a chance? And I'll never forget that day. I was so nervous, and it's just I'm finishing high school. I don't have a backup plan, right? It's this or nothing. And I went into this interview standing in front of these panel of people that I have no idea. They don't know me. I don't know them. And I remember going in and saying, you know what, I honestly believe, I don't think it's all about your marks. What you scored in math. Yes, it's important, but I don't believe that is everything. There's more to it. I think, it comes down to a calling. It also comes down to your willingness to see things through and fight for what you really want. And that's why I'm here, because I'm fighting for it. And all I'm asking you is to give me a chance. I will, guarantee that I won't let you down, but I need the chance. And at that point, I went through, I was captain of my hockey team. I was on all of these committees. I was at high school. I was a prefect at high school. So, all of these other things that kind of shaped my experiences is what I wove into my story of yeah, I know I'm not a straight A student, but here's all the other things that make me me and why I deserve a second chance. And, you kind of like, I walked out there unsure what was going to happen, but I just had to have the faith that whatever was going to unfold was going to be. And I'd grown up with my dad in particular always saying that whatever's meant for you is going to come your way. And if it's not meant for you, then it's not meant for you. So I had to have faith in that. And I think it was about a week later, I got a call to come down to the university. And I went down to meet this lady, and she called me into her office. My mum was there with me. And she said, I have news for you. We've made a decision, I'm waiting in anticipation. And she says, we've agreed to give you a second chance.
Wow.
And to let you in. So we've accepted your appeal. But I'm telling you, just don't mess this up. And, it's like one of those things where I can play it out as if it was happening in real time right now. Those words of just don't mess it up. So there was this weight going into med school of like, you can't fuck this up, right? But it was a powerful driver as well. And
what an important moment.
Yeah, and a learning experience, right?
In life.
Yeah, like also just, the world can throw shit at you, but it's how you respond and what you do about it. And what can you do that's in your control? Like that was a very early lesson for me.
How did you know that it was time to fight for your place? I understand that inside you felt this was your calling and you didn't want to give up on it. But I'm assuming you were like 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, 17, 18.
17, 18.
Yeah.
How did you know that that was even an option to fight?
You mean like go through the appeal process?
Yeah. And to go state your case at
so part of so my mom was working at the university at the time. And when I got that rejection letter, I was devastated.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what can I do? Like, what now, right? Then there was an option of, well, you can go and do like a BSc degree, and then you can try and convert in. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. And my mom said, well, then you have the option of appealing. And so that's the route that we took, right? Because like I said, there was no backup plan that I truly felt I wanted to do.
Yeah, but what a good lesson to learn at that age too, right? That if things don't go your way, yes, you do want to listen if something is not meant for you, but if you have a gut instinct that this is something you want to do, there are usually options, and you have room to fight almost always. If you're willing to.
If you're willing to, yeah. Doesn't mean that if that particular door has closed, you got to find the one that's going to open up for you. Like, and that's sort of like, if I have to think back on everything that has happened in my life, it's been like that. There's back home, there was always this assumption that because my dad is pretty well known in South Africa because of his sporting career, and he's sort of, popular figure, that our life was easy and that we had it all, and that we came from this very privileged family. But it was not the case. My dad didn't believe in giving us everything that we wanted. My first job was at the age of, I think, 12, 11. I was delivering newspapers with my sister at 5 a.m. in the morning before school. That was 7 days a week, right? Like, went through med school, holding like 3 different jobs at the same time. But through that, there are the life lessons that you learn along the way. And I think with everything that was placed in front of me, it slowly built like my resilience up over time, because it's only through that adversity and being able to come out on the other side that you build that capacity of resilience, right?
Yeah, I'm in two minds about this now as someone with kids, and you've a kid as well. I have the instinct on both sides where I do agree that hardship is important, and learning to overcome and learning to endure and learning to persevere are all really important things. But at the same time, it can be taken too far where it becomes something detrimental. And I find it very difficult to find my bearings personally on that. For myself and for my kids, I have a history of taking it a little bit too far, as in over-indexing on my ability to keep going. and it's bitten me in the ass in the past. So that's why I'm kind of aware of it. But I 100% agree with you. If we don't expose ourselves from a young age to some sort of hardship, whether through sports or through having to do early mornings or having to fight for something that you want, not knowing whether or not it's going to go through, all those like formative in such a deep way. And I mean, I think it's kind of easy to see. It's kind of easy to see with the people that you work with later in life. You know, if you work with ex-athletes, they tend to be able to keep going. They tend to be very good at what is the mission, what is the goal.
Very disciplined as well,
Let's
right?
go. Yeah. And if you work with people that have been to medical school, or, you know, we'll talk about your experience in Kazakhstan later. When people have gone through a certain amount of pressure, they don't get phased
by the little shit anymore.
Yeah, by the little shit, by the longer hours, by the whatever, right? It's just part of life, and it's this capacity that we build.